Ladies, this one's for you. I have a woman who says she believes you guys are oppressing yourselves. And it's not men. It's not men when it comes to certain aspects of what she believes you guys do when it comes to how you think and the things that she believes are problems that you create yourself. This is her opinion. What do you think? I'm going to play the video and you're going to get my reaction after. Men, what do you think? Once you hear this and hear her perspective. Let's get into the video.
This is gonna ruffle some feathers, but women aren't being oppressed by the patriarchy. We're oppressing ourselves, and I can prove it. I can. And I will. We're out here screaming, fuck the patriarchy, and blaming men for oppressing us, but I think we need to have a honest conversation about who's really doing the oppressing here. Because here's what I've realized. Women aren't being oppressed by the patriarchy. We're literally oppressing ourselves and then blaming men for it. We're rejecting traditional feminine roles that actually give us power, calling being a wife and mother oppressive when it's one of the most influential positions we can have. We're choosing career stress over family fulfillment and then wondering why we're so freaking miserable. We're sabotaging our own relationships by constantly testing men instead of supporting them, creating drama and chaos, and then blaming men for the dysfunction we created. We're competing with men instead of complimenting them, trying to out-masculine them instead of embracing our feminine power, and then wondering why they're not being masculine with us. We're making terrible dating choices, having unrealistic standards while bringing nothing valuable ourselves, choosing toxic men, and then blaming all men for our bad decisions. Make it make sense, really. We're letting ourselves go physically and then demanding men find us attractive anyway. And we're promoting body positivity instead of actual health and discipline. So we're literally choosing behaviors that make us less attractive, less valuable, and less happy. And then we blame the patriarchy for the consequences of our own choices. The patriarchy isn't holding us back. Our own mindset is. We're oppressing ourselves with our own resistance to growth, our own preference for validation over accountability. The patriarchy isn't oppressing us. We're oppressing ourselves and then pointing fingers at men. If we want to stop being oppressed, we need to stop oppressing ourselves and start taking accountability and responsibility for our own choices.
Is this something that is a issue when it comes to women? Making things harder for themselves? In terms of some of the choices they've made when it comes to societal aspects of how, they are moving in life? Is that the case? Is it something that women are not noticing they're doing? According to her, because it seems that she's saying from her perspective that there are things that women do that maybe they don't even notice even. I'm even thinking that's what she's alluding to as well. Or is what she's saying just nonsensical and there's no kind of, realistic perspective that she has? What is your view? Because for me, when it comes to society, women, men, and the conversation that we've been having online or things have been said online for all these years about the dynamics, I think there has to be an understanding that has to be reestablished between the both of us. I think we don't know exactly where we stand and what is beneficial for both of us to be in the ways that can give us that unified front that's required for us to be just existing seamlessly together. Because we are supposed to be the people, especially when we become adults, that set the pace, that set the ways things should be, that are conducive for success when it comes to future generations. You know, we should be able to live life seamlessly and not make things difficult. Now, it seems from her perspective, women have made things difficult because of some of the positions that they take when it comes to men and competing. But we're in a world now, particularly Western world that she's speaking from, it seems, where women can generally do what it is they feel when it comes to setting up anything, business, jobs, applying for them and going to certain jobs, doing things that are beneficial in their eyes to them. But I think over the years, what's taken place is that women, and it's their own prerogative, women have seen that they've wanted to do certain things, whether it's getting higher education, degrees, like I say, certain jobs of a certain level. And with that, because to get in those environments, it is something that requires some form of focus and energy and a one-track mind and discipline and all the characteristics that generally stretch you as a person to really get to a certain level. Sometimes that can put you in a state, I believe, from a woman perspective, I think it can put them in a state that doesn't give them the relaxation, the ability to move in ways where they are best suited all the times. Because it doesn't mean women can't go out and be ambitious and do. You're a human being. You have basic characteristics like that. That's natural to want to do certain things. But what I think it sometimes can do is that it can sometimes not allow you to know your best position, especially if you're talking about the dynamics between men and women. Some of the best positions I think women are good at, which I think they're not seeing, is being the eyes, I call it the eyes and ears of something, having a good sense of something, having a good inclination, having a good understanding of dynamics and environments. I think women are good at that. But sometimes the desire to push in ways where it puts them out of their natural feminine state, it makes things a little bit more challenging. So when they do, in her eyes, maybe compete with men, make certain decisions that are in a competitive state, it can over time, especially if you don't have eventually, if you don't want one, but if you do want one and you don't have husband, kids, it can make things a little bit more tiring, I think, on the general woman. Now, a lot of women will say that's not the case, but I believe if you speak to the average woman who's doing decently, eventually she would want some form of balance, because sometimes it can be monotonous. You could be so driven on certain things that you're not even giving yourself the time required, because you are in that monotonous state of wanting to do certain things in a competitive level, because of the sort of environments that you put yourself in to be ambitious. So I think a lot of the things that she's speaking on, again, some women may disagree, but just sometimes I think women are good at being a very good support role when it comes to any environment they're in. They're good at that. That's what I've noticed from women over many years. They're good at facilitating. Now, you can lead, because there's instances, obviously, where women are doing that. But I'm saying things that put them in the state that best maximize them so they can still stay in the state that I believe they've been born into, which is that feminine state, that state of being seamless in the way they do things, move, not being under duress. I think that's the best state. And I think she's alluding to some of the things that women have done that put them in certain states voluntarily, especially when it comes to competing or moving in this world when you want to start moving up. Now, that's not every woman, But I think for the most part, women would want to have that ability to say, you know what, I've got this going. I've put all this effort in, a certain area to see it flourish. But also, I need to be in a certain state that is natural to me. So I'm able to maneuver in the ways where I don't have any issue to complain and point at, as she says, the patriarchy. I think she's speaking more of the perspective of the Western world. Now, other parts of the world, that's different. That's another conversation that maybe women can have when it comes to certain things that are not, the right way, when it comes to certain things in other countries, when it comes to, how women are assimilating themselves in society. But when it comes to the Western world, I think there's a lot of things that women have that they can choose to do or not to do. They can choose to adopt certain principles or practices or, ideologies if they choose to. But with her and her points, I think there's some valid points in terms of the mentality that sometimes they adopt and the stresses that they put on themselves. Because if they were to locate a good man, if you're interested in a relationship, if you were to locate a good man who's on the same page with what you're on in terms of, equally have the same belief systems, going in the same direction, a lot of the issues that we see and hear and the gripes that women have, they wouldn't really look at it because they will know that they've got a good man and you're supporting him, he's supporting you, and you're doing what you're supposed to do with him. But I think a lot of the time, the nature of certain men is to be protective. And sometimes once, I don't believe this is a thing that women probably look at, but once men don't have the capacity and the ability to do that for someone, a woman, it can cause issue because sometimes women have a viewpoint of certain men that's not positive. So they pick men, see the results of their choices that don't go well, and then now they believe there's no one out to protect them. There's no one out to provide for them. There's no one out to assure their safety. As she was alluding to, some of the choices that women will make in relationships, start giving them a certain mentality that says, no one's out to protect me. Those instances of the men that shouldn't even had a chance are the ones that couldn't protect you. And that's where the issues lie. Some of the lack of understanding to know where women are best suited. You're best suited, in my humble opinion. And again, you can do what you want because women are doing what they want in the Western world, generally, right? But I think their best positions are ones when they're facilitating, organizing, leading things that have been established by men in a way that men should be establishing things for the greater good of a group and, for example, the woman that you're with. So a group could be family. A group could be a business that's set up. But the woman is the eyes and ears a lot of the time. And I think that's something that is not spoken about or something that's not looked at, that women have that ability. Doesn't mean you can't do other things if you want. But this is just, in my opinion, women and what she says and what she said, in fact, women not making the right decisions, women not being in the right state they need to be in because of some of the things that they choose to think like, choose to endure with other people, with other, in so many instances that they put themselves in, not realizing that there are choices that you can make better, that are best suited for you, for example, in a relationship setting. So it's a lot of things that she's saying that contribute to that, putting yourselves into certain states, making ideologies that make you overthink things, thinking that you have to appear a certain way. But really and truly in the real world, most guys and men, we're quite simple. Men are quite simple when it comes to the things. The good guys are simple when it comes to the things that are required. You know, if a guy knows what he has to do, he just expects a woman to do so. And then on top of that, you both enhance each other as years and time goes by. That's the ideology I have of thinking you're both there to enhance, you're both there to support, you're both there, you know. But if you're making decisions that eventually oppress you because you're making the wrong ones with other people, for example, that's where the issues can lie. The decision making, the lack of discernment. So this is where I believe she's alluding to. Some of the choices that you are allowed to make, you're free to, because you have autonomy in the Western world at this moment as we stand here. But it seems those choices, once they're made, it puts people, or women generally, in tough situations. Then they come out of it and then move as if people are out to get them, or people are not here to protect them. And I think, like I said earlier, that's what I think it is. It's the choices that she's assessing and is saying, you know what? Until you make that assessment, you're not going to be able to move in the ways that are beneficial. Because really and truly, if I say, oh, men are there to, you know, protect and facilitate the woman, and the woman is there to facilitate it as well, and people today will say, oh, she's in a low level role, she's being minimized. So how do you expect things to work? Because I think there's certain states men need to be in and certain states women need to be in for it to really be a seamless way where women don't have to put themselves in unprotected environments. Really and truly, we're here to be together, to multiply. And the man is there to assist, to help her not make certain decisions, because the man should be thinking logically, to help her not make certain decisions that can affect her, which in turn she wouldn't need to worry about a potential patriarchy or somebody oppressing, because you've got the man that is there for your benefit and you're there for his. But this desire to just be out, you know, I'm single and I'm this, I'm that, fine, but it can come with consequences when you don't make certain decisions on top of that. And that's where her video, I believe, was alluding to. But it will be interesting to find out what people think, because for me, she has some points. She has some points. We can't disregard also issues that do take place, structures that still need to be assessed. But also, we have to also look at what we think is important to like, and what we think is important to say that is the epitome of success. We have to look at what we think is success, what is important in life, and what are the ideologies we are accepting. So we don't make choices that keep putting us potentially in tough circumstances and situations. Because a lot of it is choice, you know, and how we view what is important, what is, you know, success. What's your viewpoints? Is this lady right? Is she partially right? Is she way off? And what is your opinion on just how women assess things and some of the viewpoints they have when it comes to, you know, them not having, in their eyes, the ability to be seamless in how they move, and obviously her saying that women are making a lot of choices incorrectly, so that incurs issues in how, you know, they are oppressed. And it's not men, she says.